Hello. Hello, my Halloween party friends. How are you today? Today, we're going to talk about the magic of animals. And this is kind of exciting because I realized that I have not really talked much, spoken to the energies that I'm aware of on this topic very much. A little bit in my As If by Magic membership, but not really that much. So thank you, Leonie, for asking about cats. She specifically asked about cats. She wanted to talk about cats, but I thought we could explore all animals. And I brought with me today this amazing book. I realized that this might be flipped and you guys might not be able to read it, but it's Talk to the Animals with this beautiful man, Gary Douglas, and he's with this horse. And I'm just going to read like a short little part of this, okay? It's chapter 1. It's right at the beginning. There's dog prints. I love it. Communicating with animals. We often assume that if we ask someone a question, he or she will give us a straight answer. Unfortunately, we are often mistaken about this. Animals, however, will always give us a straight answer, but they won't give it to us in verbal terms. Each animal has its own way of communicating, but they all have one thing in common. They don't communicate in words as much as they do in pictures. In order to communicate with animals, we have to learn to communicate in pictures too. Fortunately, this is not difficult. So when this is Gary Douglas, was first learning to communicate with animals, I had a wonderful experience with a wolf. The lady who owned him was going on a trip to Europe to buy horses. She kept telling the wolf, "I'm going away, I'll be back." The more she said this to him, the more unsettled he became until he got to the point where he wouldn't sleep or leave her side. Finally, she called me and asked, "Can you help me with this?" Whenever there's a problem, you should always ask the animal what's happening. They always know what's best for them, and they can tell you what's going on if you ask them. You have to stop coming from the point of view that you have the answer because you're human and you can think. Whoa. How many of us have bought into that? Because you're human and you can think, you must know more. Thinking, by the way, is not your best ability. It is your worst. Stop thinking about what might be going on with an animal and just ask it a question. If you ask an animal a question, it will give you the answer. I asked the wolf what's going on, and a barrage of information came at me in the form of pictures. They don't just give you pieces, they give you the whole thing all at once because they don't have a concept of a linear constructive reality. Our concept of reality is linear, is a construct. It's not truth. Animals have a holistic picture, which is rounder and bigger than the one we're willing to have in our own universe. I guess we could really learn something from them. The wolf was giving me so information all at once that I couldn't figure out what he was telling me. I said, "You've got to slow it down. Make it in slow motion so I can understand." He slowed it down and I started to get pictures of how the lady was going to go away, which to the wolf meant she was going to die. He told me that he and the lady had a long history together across many lifetimes. He showed me pictures of past lives when they had been together, died, came back together in another lifetime. I have chills and goosebumps. And that they had run around together hunting and bringing back meat. I said to the wolf, "Show me what would happen if she was going to run with you again." He gave me a picture of the lady going away and coming back with meat. I said to the lady, "Tell your wolf that you're going to go hunting and will return with meat." She asked, "Well, how do I do that?" I said, just flash it to him as a picture. And you're going out and you'll return with meat. She did, and instantaneously the wolf relaxed, laid down, and went to sleep for the first time in 4 days. Wow, that's so incredible. And please, guys, if this book is pulling you, get it. It's beautiful. And there's so many layers to it. Yeah. So have you ever actually had, Leonie, we're doing that. You know what? I almost like privately messaged you because we're doing animals today and we're going to talk about cats. And that was your request. So I just read like a piece from this book, Talk to the Animals, where Gary was talking about communicating with a wolf in pictures. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the magic of pictures. I remember I first heard about this in regards to communicating with X-Men kids. So that's what in Access Consciousness we affectionately call kids with autism, OCD, ADHD, ADD, and all of those things. And, Gary always recommended to communicate in picture form, right? Yeah, he says, I love that book. I feel like it's reread time for me. Like, oh, I don't even remember this book anymore. So to send pictures, and I remember being like, I don't know how to do that. And I was so limited by the thought process of trying to think of how I was going to do that. Well, I pulled you in better than a private message anyways. That's so true. But when I realized that I communicate in pictures all the time, but it wasn't something that I did from thought. And it wasn't how I thought it was going to show up. And that's the key there for you guys, is that if you have an idea, oh, this is how it should show up. Maybe you're referencing a movie that you've seen, or, how someone else has described how it shows up for them. And then we think if it doesn't show up the same way, we must not be doing it. We must not be doing it correctly. Everything that is, will you just train and create it, please? Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all 9 shorts, boys and beyonds. And I always just like to say, if you're new to hearing the clearing statement, those are the words I just said. If you're new to Access Consciousness, there's links in the description of this. Please check out theclearingstatement.com for more information on it. It's just a magical way to clear out energy. Okay, so what if you actually have an innate capacity to send pictures and receive pictures? It's not something that you have to cognitize. It's something that you are already being and choosing. You might just not be aware of it. So if this is a thing for you, start to ask to notice when you're sending or receiving pictures. And anything that does a lot of that, we just train and create it, right, wrong, good, bad, POC, POD, all 9 shorts, boys, beyonds. And he says, ooh, maybe my thoughts are pictures too. Sometimes my cats respond so fast that it drives me crazy. Yeah. She has beautiful cats. If you're ever lucky enough to be on a Zoom with her, and the cats will come and contribute and receive, and they'll just be this different space. And when they move around, the energy is always shifting. It's so cool. So what magical experiences have you had with animals that maybe you haven't even acknowledged? So in this piece that I read, he was talking about this woman that had past lives with this wolf. And what that pinged for me is, when I was a kid, I always wanted a dog. We couldn't afford one, so I would find every stray dog that there possibly could be. And I just loved animals growing up. I loved cats. I loved dogs. I loved all animals. I always have. But this one day, I was actually extremely depressed and tortured youth. And but luckily we lived near a river, and there was this beautiful area I could walk to, and there was these gorgeous trees and this space, and often there weren't too many people, especially in the areas that I found. And one day I was there just having this low moment, and this beautiful retriever came, and it was like meeting someone that I had known forever. And it just came to my side, and sat down next to me. And I, searched his body for a collar. Maybe it had an owner. I looked around. There was nobody around. There's nobody around for this animal. And so I hung out with him until it started to kind of get dark and cold. I'm like, okay, I better go home. So I walk home and he just followed me. He followed me home. And I was like, hey, Mom, there's this dog. And she's like, you can't let him in the house. We can't have any animals in the house. No. And I was like, okay. So like hugged the dog and I thanked it so much for being there for me and just kind of said bye, like sent it on its way. Went in, had dinner, went to sleep, all the things. Next morning, wake up. Well, he slept on the front step. And I was like, what? You stayed here? No food. He didn't like, and where we weren't far from where I found him. So if he did live close by, I just assumed he would have gone home. So I like hugged him and I was so thankful. And I love this dog so much. I named him Charlie. And I walked to the school bus and then I said goodbye. And I went on the school bus, went to school, came back, got off the bus. We get dropped off and picked up at the same place. Charlie was waiting for me. He walked me back home and I hugged him and cuddled him. And then I went inside to, have a snack after school, put my stuff away. And then he came out a little bit later. He was still there. I was like, Mom, we can't, like, he's here. He's here for me. I got a blanket for him. I like snuck some, don't tell my mom, snuck some food for him. I was like, this animal was such a gift. And if I would have had the tools, I wonder what I would have known. But there was this sense of massive contribution, the sense of knowing him before I knew him. And even sometimes now in my adult life, I will have a sense of this animal being. And I know that I will see him again. It's so cool. It's so interesting. So what magic are animals in our lives? And maybe you don't have an animal. Maybe you don't have access to one, but that doesn't mean that you can't receive from them, that you can't commune with them. I actually once was in I was going for a massage therapy appointment and there was a little autistic boy in the waiting room and the mom was kind of talking to the practitioner. And so I was just kind of hanging out with the kid for a minute and he's like, oh, don't step there. And I was like, why? And he goes, there's a snake. And I looked down and there was no snake, but I could actually sense the entity of a snake there. And he was like, I'm scared. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I was like, and I started to talk to the entity of the snake and I was just doing entity clearings essentially. Do you know you don't have a body anymore? Do you want to be in this house? And then the boy as I sensed the snake entity slithering out of the house, the boy pointed as it left. And it was so cool just to communicate and to be able to have these magical interactions. I also I have two incredible stories of experiences with horses that dynamically changed my life, but those are a bit longer conversations. I would love for you to acknowledge where animals have contributed, the magic of that dynamic contribution, and also what if you were willing to create even more magical encounters? What animals do you know from other lifetimes that would desire to contribute to you right now? Would you actually be willing to lower your barriers and receive from them? And my sense is that each animal is kind of different, Lenny, you'd asked about cats, and all cats are different, but there's a vibration of that type of being, that type of body. And then we have the horses and we have the dogs and we have the wolves and we have the snakes and the reptiles. And what if they could all be this massive contribution to us if we're just willing to receive and we're just willing to gift? So everything that you've done to deny, to negate, to ignore, the magical possibilities, the miraculous spaces of contribution you could be choosing with animals, with bodies and without bodies, would you be willing to destroy and create all that now, please? Right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all named shorts, boys and beyond. Woo-hoo. So you might notice now if this is new to you, to opening up to this world of animals in a different way, you might notice now as you go about your day, you go into the grocery store, you walk down the street, you might notice animals taking notice of you. You might notice them coming to you. Maybe you're at a friend's house and the animals always pile on top of you. What if you acknowledge the contribution of that? And what if you were willing to ask for more? Amp it up, have more contribution, more receiving, more gifting, infinite, 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 and have those magical, miraculous moments show up that can truly change your entire life. I've had that experience twice now. Actually, let's include Charlie. Let's say 3 times now. And I wonder, opening up to that, if I were willing to ask for more, what would show up? If you were willing to ask for more, what could show up and what would show up for you? That's so melty and delicious and magical. And I think that if any of you are out and about and you see you have some really cool interactions with the animals, I would like for you to snap a picture and post it in this thread, because it would be really cool to have a bunch of magical photos of animals. And do you notice that some animals, I'm just looking for the emoji here, guys. Some animals seem to resonate more with you. What if you ask some questions about that? What is that about this animal? Maybe it's cats. Maybe you're a dog person. Maybe you're a horse person. Maybe you're just a total animal person. And if there's a certain animal that you dislike, you could look at what that is and actually clear that dislike, clear that separation, that judgment, that rejection, that projection, and that expectation. And then I wonder what would be possible with that animal and all animals. Leonie says, yep, dogs have to become enthusiastic around me to the annoyance of their owners. Yeah. Isn't that funny? I just actually had that encounter with a dog today at the school picking up my kids, and dog owners, animal owners feel like they have this responsibility. It's very similar to having, to being a parent. We think we're responsible, that our kids, are always polite. They always look presentable. They always say the right thing. They always, and especially having an autistic kid that doesn't have a lot of filter, you really never know what's coming out of that person's mouth. Hey, what if that was okay? What if you didn't have to control your animals either? Okay, today's emoji. Scavenger hunt on. It's going to be the cat, the black cat, the traditional, the cliche animal of all witches and wizards, right? The black cat. There's the familiars, the wizard apprentices. What if we played with that a little bit today and really explored what you know about the magic of animals, the capacities? Of course, the cat. Yes, of course. Where is my black cat? It should be jumping on my shoulder right now and doing something mysterious. Cats can be quite mysterious, can't they? I get why we chose them to represent the companion of the magic folk. So what companion, what animal would actually truly like to be your companion, your magical companion that you've never acknowledged? And would you claim, own, and acknowledge it now? And that doesn't mean you have to go get a pet. Maybe you can just invite that energetic contribution into your world. Happy scavenger hunting today. We only have a few more days, I think. After today, there's 1 or 2 more days. Math is not my thing right now. But this has been really fun. I'm really enjoying it. Thank you so much for playing. And I will make a post just here in a few minutes giving you a hint of where to find the black cat emoji. Bye for now.